Over the last couple of years, Tissot released two watches that have quickly become some of the brand's most popular models, the Gentleman and the PRX. This has created a question for many. Which one should I buy? So in this video, we'll help answer this question and discuss what watch is the better choice for each particular situation and which one is the best for you to pick. Let's jump into it. All right guys, now before we jump into this video, big reason why I wanted to make this video was because I get this question every single day, at least once, on Instagram and other places. We're an authorized dealer of Tissot, so I've spent a ton of time, many different models, looked at these models for the past year with the PRX and 2 years with the Tissot Gentleman, and really have now gotten a pretty good pulse on which one is probably right for which type of scenario. But after this video, if you've liked what you've seen from either of these pieces, definitely recommend checking them out on teddybaldassarre.com. We'll have links down below. So Tissot as a brand has a history dating back to 1853, having been founded in Switzerland by a father and son team. And in 1930, Tissot linked up with Omega, laying the groundwork for a business relationship that continues to this day in the form of the modern Swatch Group. Within the Swatch Group's powerful modern assembly of brands, Tissot serves as one of the value-oriented entry points in the world of Swiss watchmaking alongside brands like Hamilton. In the last 5 years of releases, the Gentleman and PRX are two of the most popular models among collectors and have created a conundrum for many collectors out there on which is the better option for which situation. Moving in chronological order based on the time of release, while the Gentleman name already existed in Tissot's collection, the Powermatic 80 Silicium was released back in 2020, immediately becoming a powerful player in Tissot's overall offering by presenting a refined everyday option at a very attainable price compared to many other Swiss players. And like many Tissot models, including the PRX we'll get into next, the Gentleman is also available in essentially an identically finished package with a quartz caliber for a lot less money, starting at around $350 on a strap. Starting with a conversation on the wearing experience, the Gentleman's 40mm diameter wears true to size, if not slightly larger, with its 48mm lug to lug. 11mm of height ensures this watch will work well on a majority of wrists out there and has a real-world application in dressier environments. Finishing is well done for the price, with a highly polished bezel resting on top of the brushed case with a slender bevel running along its sides. Set between 20mm lugs, the Gentleman leans into a pin-adjusted 3-link oyster-style bracelet that is generally well done with polished center links and brushed outer links and a butterfly-style deployant clasp that does not offer any kind of micro-adjustment and will be susceptible to showing scratches with the polished center links. The bracelet and lug width are probably the most notable points working against this piece, and even with this being the case though, they're not really deal breakers and the bracelet is certainly acceptable for the price, but this piece offers many attributes that are exceptional for the price category, which makes these kind of stand out a little bit when working against it, because everything again, I think is just working in favor of looking in the direction of this watch. Where the Gentleman really begins to shine though is beneath the flat sapphire crystal with its dial. Here we have a central surface exhibiting a deep blue navy color with a subtle sunburst effect that some might say is lacking some flair, but given its down to business nature and optimized versatility, it is the perfect backdrop of looks for its intended purpose. Of all the finished components from the case, bracelet, and beyond, the indices are the standouts. They offer impressive attention to detail, being neatly faceted with a brushed top surface and polished edges that reflect in the light and do not look as if they belong anywhere on a watch that's south of $800 in price. At the center, a paired taper faceted polished baton style hands manage time telling duties in tandem with a simply printed minute track. Limited dial text is a plus, with the Gentleman offering only the Tissot logo at 12, some movement highlights at 6, with the polished and framed date window acting as the only other element breaking up a clean, versatile dial design that was clearly implemented with mass appeal in mind. While lume is present in tiny plots of the dial's periphery as well as on the hands, it isn't exceptional, though it should be powerful enough for most in terms of daily use. And given the dial in many ways leans dressy, I see this inclusion of lume as well as the 100 meters of water resistance being exercises of sporty upside in a watch that will not look out of place in a formal environment. And also just one final point about this blue dial and also the upcoming PRX blue dial that we're going to look at. Decided on blue because those are the two most popular dials that I see being looked at on both ends for these models. Turning the Gentleman over, we have a clear view of a simply finished Powermatic 80 caliber through the exhibition caseback. At its core, the Powermatic series of calibers utilizes ETA movement architecture that is modified in order to obtain its impressive 80 hours of power reserve, reducing the 28,800 vibration per hour beat rate of the base and dropping it down to 21,600 vibrations per hour or 3 Hz to maximize the reserve to be more than double of that base of ETA 2824. This considered, it's important to note that this isn't the base model Powermatic 80, with this one being the 811 version, offering a silicium hairspring that vastly reduces the watch's overall susceptibility to magnetism, while also being the variant most often sent in for COSC certification, though this particular watch isn't COSC certified, so just want to clarify that there. These movements forego the use of any traditional regulator pin setup, which does add some difficulty with regulating yourself, unlike other ETA calibers. However, this particular gentleman kept time at an impressive 0 to +2 seconds per day when testing across 5 different positions. This is anecdotal, just looking at this model, but I find with these gentlemen, they do run well out of the box. So just unpacking this movement, 21,600 vibrations per hour, 3 Hertz. It does feature hacking and hand winding, hacking stop in the second hand when you pull the crown to the farthest position, and a power reserve of 80 hours. So moving over from the Gentleman, we now have the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80. Released as a quartz variant in early 2021 with a much anticipated automatic version released only a few months later. With a lot of influence coming from the 1970s C-Star, the PRX reaches back to the glory days of integrated bracelet sport watches and strong design cues from the Rolex Oyster Quartz. On the wrist, the 40mm case diameter presented by the PRX wears true to the dimension or slightly smaller in terms of the width as a result of the smaller dial, but much larger than the proposed lug-to-lug of 44.6mm. Now, when measuring the included end lengths, and that's important in this equation, it measures approximately 51mm at the farthest point. Now, before you start freaking out, this isn't fully felt in practice given the curved nature of that end length, yet it is safe to say that it wears broader than that 44.6mm on the lug-to-lug, and ultimately wears closer to that of a 40.5 to 41mm watch. The unconventional case and smaller dial makes comparing this with the Gentleman difficult, but to put it simply, the PRX looks smaller across optically, but wears slightly more broad from top to bottom. While shared with the much less expensive quartz variant, priced at $375, the PRX Auto still features some of the best-in-class finishing across the case and especially the bracelet, with a brushed top surface and reflective highlights on the bezel along the side of the case, and in between the bracelet links. Articulation of the links are exceptional and noticeably less stiff compared to that of the Gentleman, leading to the PRX getting the upper hand on the case and bracelet finish. Like the Gentleman though, there are no points of micro adjustment in the butterfly style clasp, but otherwise this is an excellent bracelet that will never have you questioning what this integrated configuration would look like without the factory pairing. Taking up view of the watch's anterior surface, we have a flat sapphire crystal set within a stepped, highly polished bezel with a textured dial lying underneath. The pressed waffle surface serves as the backdrop for the polished and faceted hour markers in concert with the stylized baton hands. The markers contain superluminova despite their slimmer build, and one thing I will say about the PRX markers, although they're well done, they are significantly behind the alluring look of the faceted markers seen on the Gentleman. I think they're just way more dynamic on that piece when you're talking about the markers. Simple dial text at 12 and 6, as well as a frame date window at 3 are the only other aspects to note on this clean design, though if you're not a fan of this textured surface, that is when the quartz model will begin to make more sense, as it has more of a design that's going to look in alignment with the Gentleman. Turning the PRX over, we take up view of the simply adorned Powermatic 80 caliber resting beneath the exhibition caseback. In contrast to the more expensive Gentleman, the PRX utilizes a slightly lower spec Powermatic 80 with the .111 caliber, which features 23 joules and doesn't include the silicium hairspring found in the Gentleman's 25 joule upgraded 811 Powermatic variant. Despite the difference in spec, the caliber offers the same 21,600 vibration per hour beat rate, 3 Hertz, does feature hacking and hand winding as well, and a power reserve of 80 hours. Though speaking anecdotally to this example here in terms of accuracy, the PRX wasn't quite as accurate as the Gentleman, running between -8 to -1 seconds per day when testing across 5 different positions. Again, I just like to offer up the 2 models that we are deciding to review in a video just to give some anecdotal evidence, but typically I do find that the Gentleman is going to outperform the PRX slightly when it comes to accuracy. So now that we've gone through an overview of both of these watches, let's talk about the pros and cons affiliated with both of them, and then make a final kind of just stance on which one is the better one to go for for your particular situation. Now, starting with the Gentleman first, I think the Gentleman is by far the more versatile option, and really what I think that comes down to is the lack of the integrated bracelet just offers some more dressy undertones that I think could be utilized by probably more people out there. But in addition to that, it also matches a lot of the benefits that come with a sportier design. 100 meters of water resistance, sapphire crystal, decent bracelet here, and a reliable movement on the inside with some lume. Neither of them are great in that department. Although it does have 21mm lugs, you do get the upside of being able to have more optionality with straps, and you get the Powermatic 8811 caliber, which is going to have that silicium hairspring, and typically I find better regulation. Some general cons and just things to consider when looking at the Gentleman: you aren't getting any micro adjustment here, just like you aren't on the PRX. Finishing on the case and bracelet, I would say, is a little bit behind that of the PRX. I think it's just a leader in the class there, but I do find that the dial finishing, or at least the faceted markers on the dial, are better with the Gentleman. And one other final point that I'll mention, because there are a little bit more polished elements on the Gentleman, it's going to show wear scratches a bit quicker than that of the PRX. Now moving over to the PRX and looking at the advantages there. When you're talking about the automatic versions, it's going to be more affordable. You're saving close to $100 here when looking at the PRX. In addition to that, it kind of scratches that urge that so many people have right now in getting into an integrated sports watch. Prices have gone absolutely out of this world for many of those watches. So to get one that's definitively the best, I would say, for under $1,000, I think it's great to see, and that's gonna really scratch that itch for many people, unlike the Gentleman, which kind of is going for more of a conventional type of output with its design. 100 meters of water resistance, so you're getting that sporty upside, definitely gonna be more of a sportier design. I would say it has a better case finish and bracelet. You're not getting micro adjustment, but a lot of things are being delivered here I think are fantastic. And the waffle texture dial is well done, although stamped. It's just going to create a more retro styling if that's something that you favor. Now, a couple downsides with the Powermatic 80 PRX. One is no micro adjustment in the bracelet. Given that you are absolutely married to this bracelet, I think that is going to be maybe a bigger consideration. I have not had an issue with sizing this up for my wrist, but just something to consider. You can't fine tune it the same way as other bracelets out there. Also, it's just not going to be as versatile as the Gentleman. I think the Gentleman, because you have some more openness to straps and it's just more conventional, you don't have the integrated bracelet design, this one's just going to give off more of a sporty type of nature, which could cause this watch to look out of place in certain scenarios more than the Gentleman would. Also, as another point, some might not like the fact that it's a bit more in alignment with some of these integrated sports designs. They might see that as infringing on this homage territory, which some people aren't crazy about. And then also with the movement inside, although I think it's reliable, I think you're going to get some good performance out of it, the Gentleman's movement is going to be superior based on both accuracy, I found, as well as you're getting that silicium hairspring on the inside. And again, just really quickly on wearability, the Gentleman, I find, just looks a little bit bigger just sitting down, just because the dial appears larger, but from top to bottom, it wears more compact than the PRX. I find both of them wear pretty true to size, if not slightly larger. I would say the Gentleman does kind of have more of that optically larger view given the bezel to dial ratio compared to that of the PRX. But the PRX, given that integrated sports bracelet design, just top to bottom, it might just create a visual dynamic that's different than what you're used to if you have a liking to traditional lugs. I would say a 6¼ inch wrist and above is kind of the cutoff. Maybe a 6-inch wrist could also pull these off depending on your preferences. So that's around 15.5 centimeters, I would say, and above for my metric system friends. Again, this is all pretty subjective, but I would say they both wear around the same size as what their projected diameter is, if not a little bit larger. But if I had to sum it up in one sentence and make a case for both of them, if you want maximum versatility with some sporty upside, I think the Gentleman's gonna make more sense for you. If you want that integrated sports style watch at the most attainable price and done in the best way possible, I think that's when the PRX makes more sense. Simply put, I think they're both fantastic watches, among some of the best watches you're going to find for under $1,000. Certainly consider the quartz versions if you just want to get into these designs and want all the same upside, but just are gonna go for a quartz movement. I'd strongly consider it. I think it makes even more sense for the PRX because the case is the biggest upside with this design. And if that is the truth, then I think it makes even more sense to look at that design. Plus you get a completely different dial design in the process if you don't like this waffle texture. But all right guys, that is my overview looking at these two models. If you did find it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. I receive this question all the time about which one to go for. So I just wanted to address it more in bulk and kind of mass with the video here. Which one do you prefer, the Gentleman or the PRX? Give some reasons why in the comments down below so you can help out other people that are maybe looking to kind of solve or figure this out for themselves. And of course, if you are in the market for these watches, check them out. They are on teddybaldassarre.com. We are a full authorized dealer of Tissot and 30 other brands. Quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. If you want to stay up to date with the content, be sure to follow along on Instagram as well. Check out our new pre-owned section on teddybaldassarre.com. But guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.